Hello, and welcome to Anaphylaxis UK's Let's Talk About Allergies podcast, where we provide expert answers to common questions about allergies and anaphylaxis. Our goal is to offer valuable insights on how we can all work together to make life easier and safer for those living with allergies. In today's episode, we're focusing on a topic that affects thousands of families and schools across the UK: how schools can keep children with serious allergies safe. I'm joined by Tracey Dunn, our AllergyWise Manager, and Georgina Jones, our Deputy Chief Exec here at Anaphylaxis UK. Tracey has over 30 years teaching experience and leads our Safer Schools programme and our AllergyWise training course. She works directly with schools, teachers and parents to improve allergy awareness and emergency preparedness. Today, we'll be discussing practical tips for school staff on accommodating children with allergies, how to work effectively with parents during school transitions, and the most common questions schools have about allergy management and catering. Whether you're a teacher, school nurse, catering manager, or a parent of a child with allergies, this episode is packed with insights and resources to help you create a safer, more inclusive school environment. Hi, Tracey. Thanks for joining us today. So the first question I have is, when a child with serious allergies joins a school, what is the very first step that staff should be taking?
Hi, Mary. Thanks for asking me to talk today on this really important subject. So the first step when a school is made aware that a child with serious allergies is joining them is to arrange to meet with the parents. And this is actually before the child has actually set foot in the building, before their first day at school. It's really important to meet with the parents and carers to actually find out as much about the child's allergy as possible. One of those ways is to use our individual risk assessment that we have for students. And this will really guide the conversation and help staff to understand from the parents and carers what that child's allergy might present like in school, and how to manage the full range of curriculum subjects with those things that potentially you'd not necessarily thought about before. So very first step, arrange a meeting with the parents and carers to actually learn about that allergy. And then after that, you need to go away, and we need to be thinking about doing a whole school risk assessment if this is the first child, or updating that whole school risk assessment if there are other children, to make sure that the allergy whole school risk assessment has everything necessary in it. Then we need to start communicating. We need to communicate with the entire staff team. Everybody needs to know which children in schools have got allergies. We need to be communicating with the caterers. We need to be communicating with the children themselves. For example, if the child is starting in reception, one of the things that the school can do with the parent carer's permission is to write a letter to all of the new starters to actually inform them that there is a little one with serious allergies starting in the class, and give them some ideas of things that they can do to support school and to support their child be really inclusive in school. Okay. And you won't be surprised to know that all of the resources that you need are on our website, free to download.
So once the school finds out that someone might be joining with an allergy, should the staff reach out to the parents first, or should staff wait for parents to come to school to arrange a meeting?
It's really important for school to be proactive. So there will be a registration form that the parent carer has to complete. And the minute that registration form is returned to school, and it says on there that the child has an allergy, school need to reach out and make that appointment to meet with the parents, ideally face to face. But if not, do it virtually. It's before the child starts school. So it's really important that those registration forms actually come into school before the child starts school.
Okay, so what is one tip that you would say is the best way to build that trust with the parents to make sure that they feel comfortable with their child starting school? Is there a technique that you think works best when first bridging the gap and talking to the parents about their child's allergy?
So it is being proactive. It is being honest about your level of knowledge to do with allergies. It's okay not to know, as long as you have those plans to put in place the knowledge that you're going to need to keep the little one safe in school. It's listening to the parents and carers, because they are the expert in their child's allergy, and understanding that they are coming from a place of anxiety, most likely because they're going to be handing over their child to your care, and they need to understand that you are going to care for their child in the way that they would. Being proactive in that relationship building is really important at the start of your journey together and throughout, knowing that you've got a trip coming up next term, actually saying to them early, we've got a trip going, and can we talk about the things that we're going to need to put into place to ensure that your child is safe? Not asking them to come on the trip, but actually thinking about where all the issues might be.
So, what essential information should the schools be requesting from the parents up front when they have a new student starting school with an allergy?
So any child with a diagnosed allergy will have an allergy action plan. Now, this is completed by the medical professional. So it is a standardized form from the BASCI that allergy clinics and GPs produce. And it details what the child is allergic to, what medication they have, and how to respond in an emergency. Really importantly, it has a space for parent carer signatures, and it's essential that it's signed because it is your medical and parental authority to administer the medication if and when it is needed. So that is the most important document that parents and carers need to provide for you. If they have any other information in the form of a clinic letter that would be helpful, then you can always ask if they are happy for you to keep a copy. But the allergy action plan is designed to be shared.
Okay. So if they have a copy of the plan, but it hasn't been signed by a healthcare professional, then really you need to be asking them to come back with that completed copy before they can take it forward with any other plans that are going to be put in place.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. And it needs to be signed by the medical professional, but also the parents and carers too.
Great. And I will link to those allergy action plans in the description of this podcast for anyone who would like to download them. There are 3 different kinds, one for children who have EpiPens, one for Jext pens, and one for those children who haven't been administered adrenaline but may carry antihistamines or asthma medications.
Focusing now on the skills needed for the whole team within schools. What are the critical components of allergy training for education staff in your experience?
Thank you. So critical components are going to be the signs and symptoms of an allergic reaction and of anaphylaxis, and how to treat both of those. It's really important that staff have hands-on practical experience of administering the trainer adrenaline auto-injectors, both brands, because staff, when I train them, are always surprised at how forceful they need to be in administering that, or they get a bit heated and it bounces off the leg. And so just having a go with those ensures that staff feel really confident should they ever be faced with a situation where they need to administer one. It needs to also include actually what an allergy is and how that is different from an intolerance or celiac disease, to ensure that staff understand that we're talking about something that is really serious, that it is life-threatening, that the children just want to be the same as everybody else. And unless we have that understanding of what allergy is, we can't develop the empathy that we need for supporting those living their life with allergy. We also need to be thinking about those top 14 food allergens, but understanding that you can be allergic to anything. And we need to know what some of the top most common non-food allergens are as well. So the training does need to be quite comprehensive, and it needs to include things like allergy management and where do you store those adrenaline auto-injectors? And does the school have spare ones? Do the staff know what box they're looking for when they're going to get that emergency medicine pack? Or is it just in any old ice cream tub, which makes it harder to identify? So we have, as you would imagine, everything covered in both our e-learning AllergyWise for Schools training, but also in our face-to-face training, which does give that fantastic opportunity to be guided through the use of the adrenaline auto-injectors, and also to have questions that crop up during training to be answered there and then.
Thank you, Tracey. That's really insightful. A number of schools have taken up Anaphylaxis UK's training, which is brilliant to see. In your experience, how often should the training be refreshed?
So we recommend that allergy training is refreshed every 12 months. It's really important to think about allergies are everybody's responsibility in the same way that we think about safeguarding being everybody's responsibility. We update our safeguarding every 12 months, and actually it's essential that staff understand and have that knowledge about allergy management and emergency procedures refreshed that regularly as well, so that they always know how to respond.
So just on the topic of emergency response, I'm just wondering if we could go into a bit more detail on adrenaline auto-injectors and the key things that staff really need to know about them. So, for example, where should they be stored at school? Should students carry their pens on them at all times? And how does this differ perhaps between those younger students in primary school and the older students in secondary school?
Okay, thanks, Mary. So it's really important that adrenaline is instantly accessible whenever it is needed. So it is recommended that the adrenaline is always with the student. Now, as you said, that is going to look different depending on the age of the student. For a child in nursery or Key Stage 1, then the adrenaline is 100% the adult's responsibility. It's in the classroom, and it may need to move with the child, whether they're going to lunch or to PE. It definitely has to go out on trips. The older a child gets, the more we need to be encouraging them to take responsibility for their adrenaline. Staff still retain 100% of the responsibility in primary school. And, you know, the recommendation is it depends on the age and maturity of the child as to how much of that responsibility that they take. But we can't expect the children to go from having no responsibility in year 6 to 100% of the responsibility themselves in year 7. So that gradual build up of carrying their own through Key Stage 2 is really important, because in secondary school, they will be expected to carry their own, rightly so. So the children should have 2 pens available all of the time. So we shouldn't be splitting the pens up to put one in the office and one with the child. 2 pens on the child in the classroom all of the time, wherever the child is. So we do then have the spare adrenaline auto-injectors, and those need to be kept somewhere accessible, not locked away. And often schools will think about putting them in a place like the dining hall, because that's one of the highest risk areas that there are during the school day, particularly when children have got food allergens. It's when they're eating that they are most likely to have a reaction. But we don't want adrenaline ever locked away. So wherever we put it, we need to be thinking about how many locked doors or fobbed doors need to be gone through in order to get that adrenaline. Can it be got within 5 minutes? And that's timing from the furthest point in your school to where the adrenaline is and back again. It's not 5 minutes each way. We want this adrenaline to be instantly accessible. So it's really important that we also think about things like the fire drill and lockdown procedures, because that is something that needs to go out with the child. And I've had this experience in my own school. One very hot summer week, we had a bit of an issue with some smoke rising from one part of the building, and we had to call the fire brigade. So we had to evacuate, and then we were out of school for about an hour and a half. And so we couldn't leave that medication in the building, and we wouldn't have been able to go back in the building to get it. So whether it be adrenaline or whether it be antihistamine or even asthma inhalers, these must form part of practice when we do a fire drill, because when we need to do it for real, then we're in the habit of making sure that medication is with the child.
Sure. So in lessons, any kind of lessons, for example, if you're going down to the courts or the AstroTurf for PE, you want that medication to be traveling down with the child at all times. And
Yes,
on a hot day, if there's a sports day or something like that, then you do recommend using the cooling bags just to make sure the medications are kept at the right temperature. And then is it okay for the medications to stay on the staff if the kids are involved in activities?
Yeah, so medication shouldn't impair the child's ability to participate in anything. So whilst we say it needs to be with the child, we wouldn't be saying it needs to be on the child, because actually putting something on the child is going to make them stand out as being different, and it's going to get in the way of the things that they are trying to do. So it's completely acceptable for it to be with the staff member, as long as everybody knows who has got it and it doesn't disappear off with the member of staff. On a hot day, such as sports day, we do need to be thinking about that temperature regulation, and we do need to be thinking about making sure that the adrenaline auto-injectors are within a cool, shady area, and popping them into a cool bag, making sure that they don't actually touch an ice block, because we don't want them to get too cold either, is definitely something that is advisable. So we need to be thinking about what do we put them in to make sure that they don't touch the cold block, but actually having the ability to keep them cooler.
Perhaps would the teacher be okay there to reach out to the parents to see, what they would recommend, as the parent might be, better expert in terms of keeping the adrenaline at the right temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. Parents are the experts when it comes to their child's allergy management. They're a walking encyclopedia of food products and shops, and they risk assess continually. So that, as we talked about at the beginning, that proactive communication really pays dividends, because rather than you trying to work something out, the parent or carer has probably already got a workable solution.
Sure, thanks, Tracey. So as we know, you're an expert when it comes to allergy policies at school. So what is it that you often see missing from these policies that could be life-saving in the event of anaphylaxis?
The thing that is missing are just the thinking through all of the different situations, leaving the medication behind, thinking about blocked doors, staff's brains going offline and them having a little bit of a panic. So it is well worth actually doing, an emergency medication drill alongside a fire drill, and on an inset day, mock up the situation to actually say, right, okay, or Tracey's out on the field and she's having anaphylaxis. What do we do now? And you can actually practically get out your stopwatch as well if you wanted to test how far away it is. You need to think through, well, okay, a member of staff has forgotten her fob today. She's borrowed a lanyard, but it doesn't have a fob on it. How's she going to get into the building in that situation? And so it's actually just teasing these things through to make sure that that emergency preparedness has been really considered.
Okay, and is there a common mistake that you often see in schools that perhaps haven't got a specific allergy policy in place that, they've had advice on. Is there a common mistake that you see schools make when it comes to allergy management at school and those emergency responses?
The common mistake is splitting up the adrenaline or thinking that it needs to be locked away, both of which are not to happen, and failing to communicate proactively with parents and carers.
Great, thank you.
Thinking then, Tracey, about catering and food in school. Children are at school a long part of the day now, often at breakfast clubs and after school clubs, as well as school lunches. When thinking about allergen management and working alongside either in-house or externally commissioned caterers, what should schools be thinking about and asking in terms of allergen labelling, meal preparation, and safe zones?
Right. So I think the first thing that schools need to embrace is the fact that they do have a responsibility themselves for ensuring that lunchtime goes smoothly and that it's not just all the caterer's responsibility. So there is a three-way conversation needed at lunchtime, because it's the schools, it's the caterers, and it is parent and carers need to have that conversation together. When schools are procuring a caterer, they need to make sure that the caterer has got the right training, so their food hygiene, but also allergen management. Schools need to talk to the caterers about the supply chains to make sure that the information that everybody needs to understand around where this food is coming from is available, and that the caterer can produce the appropriate allergen information. They need to work together to decide how the children will be identified, and the sharing of information is allowed through GDPR. That's something that crops up time and time again, and that is that we are not allowed to do that piece of information sharing, but it's safety and safeguarding, and we are allowed to do that piece of information sharing between school and caterer. In actual fact, it's essential. So we need to be thinking about identification, supply chains, allergen matrix, correct labelling, training for the staff, and that communication together between parents, school and caterer to make sure that whatever system is agreed upon works to include the child and also keep them safe. And including doesn't necessarily mean wearing a lanyard or a wristband. I see excellent practice around schools down to coloured plates or coloured cups, and allergy always being a particular colour. That means that everybody knows and can identify, and the sharing of information that supports the use of allergy champions within the dinner hall all go together to keep children with allergies safe, but without making them stand out from everybody else. It all comes back down to risk assessment all the time. Every decision that we make in school comes down to risk assessment. What is the risk? What are the controls? And then finding a system that works for that.
Can I just ask, is there a particular way that you have seen schools present allergen information that is a good way of doing it? I've heard people putting up on a board, or it popping up in red at the till when the child goes to purchase the lunch or snack. Is there, a way that you think works the best in terms of trying to communicate what allergens are actually in the meals for that day?
So in primary schools, the menu is typically on a 3-week rota basis and is available online. And the allergen information in the form of a matrix, probably from the Food Standards Agency, they have a nice, clear one that's easy to download and to use, should be sitting alongside that menu. Any changes to the menu at short notice then need to be communicated to the school so that we can do some double check-in around making sure that meal is still safe for the child.
Mm-hmm.
In secondary schools, having the allergen information freely available for the students, as in on the counter, there's a sign that says what the allergens are in there. I've also seen it work really well where there is a QR code on the wall, which they scan as they're going into the lunch hall. So they've got their allergens ahead of time, which empowers them. And then, like you said, just that check-in at the till. So secondary school students need a couple of checks along the way to ensure that they are self-declaring their allergens to the catering staff, because in secondary school, there can be a number of students who actually don't like to say, I have an allergy, because they don't want to make themselves any different. So giving that information in as many different accessible ways in secondary school is really important.
And I was just wondering whether parents need to be brought in when schools are working with the caterers, or it's fine for school to just work with the caterers directly. Is it reasonable for the staff at the school perhaps to want to get their opinion on how the caterers are handling the allergens? And yeah, basically, is this a place where parents should be brought into the discussion?
It's always important to hear parental voice. So during your procurement, it would be good to encourage that communication with parents and carers so that school knows what's important for parents and carers when they are procuring those services. When the contract has been signed and we've got a school meal provider in place, then a feedback system is really helpful so that both if parents and carers have the ability to feed back in any positives or negatives, and should be encouraged to do so. And the same with staff. They need to be empowered to communicate anything that they notice that isn't working as well, or things that they are finding are working particularly well within that catering contract's life. Then you have parents and carers being involved with the caterers when their child first starts school, or if things are changing for their child, so that they can have the conversations that they need to. And in my experience, all caterers are really willing to have conversations directly with parents. But what caterers say is that it is a holistic responsibility. It is school's responsibility too. School can't just remove themselves from the making sure that the catering is working well for all of the children.
Thank you, Tracey. Thinking now about when children bring in food from home, so packed lunches or snacks, or thinking about the class parties, the end of term celebrations, which is maybe less regulated than the school meal providers. Seen some good examples of where families have asked to bring in individual plates for their child, so the child with severe allergies is not separated from the class party. But how would you go about managing that? What's the most safest way? Would the child who has got the severe allergy have their packed lunch, for example, stored on the trolley with the other children's in that class, or are there special considerations that need to be thought about with food coming from home?
Only the same considerations that we would give for school meals. We need to be thinking about food sharing and children swapping things about and touching each other's food. So there is an education piece there that we need every school to be doing with their children. And also the hygiene. We should have clean hands before and after we eat. But there isn't a need to store a lunchbox in a separate place. It may well be that makes the school or the parent carer feel more reassured, in which case there is no reason not to. But there isn't any compelling reason to do that either. And so you mentioned class parties. And that can be a bit of a minefield, and unless the allergens are thought about at an early planning stage, then it can be quite difficult for those living with allergies. And we want to be inclusive. So we need to be making sure that the foods that we have at a party are pre-packed so that we can check allergen information. We know exactly what's going to be safe for the child. We need to be prescriptive over things that might be safe. So it might be that there is a particular chocolate bar that parents say, well, if this chocolate bar was bought for everybody, then that would make it safe for my child. And so schools might say, well, we're going to have X chocolate bar only, rather than it being down to sort of parental choice. We need to be thinking about the inclusivity. And so, as you said, it's quite nice that when every child brings their own plate of food in, because everybody is looking the same. It is just really important that however we decide to manage it, we've had that conversation with parents and carers, because they will tell you about the inclusivity levels, and they will also tell you about safety. Because quite often, I think school staff make decisions with the best of intentions, but actually those decisions just serve to exclude the child a little bit more. So it's working together.
And I just wanted to say that we did a podcast episode back in November, Tracey, where we spoke about how to host school events. It was about Christmas because it was around Christmas time, but Tracey gave loads of really great tips about school events, class parties, etc. So that episode is called Allergy Friendly Festivities: Tips for Keeping Children with Allergies Safe at School This Christmas. And I will link to that as well in the podcast description. Just there, Tracey goes into a bit more detail about how exactly to run those school events and make sure that everyone's included.
Thanks, Mary. And also, if you could link to our guide for food in events and festivals and celebrations, I think our listeners would find that really useful too.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mary. Underpinning most of what you've discussed today, Tracey, is that communication and joint approach when working with families. You've spoken a lot in various other podcasts and other work that you've done about the critical time around transition. So when children start school, when they move to a new year group, to a new phase, so from infants to juniors, from juniors to seniors, and how those are critical times in a child with severe allergies life. And I guess if something may crop up, it may be around that time due to communication and sharing of information. So what systems ensure allergy information isn't lost when a child moves year group or to a new school, such as from primary to seniors?
So every school will have its own system and its own, generally a tick sheet for this is the information that needs to be transferred between staff, different year groups, different schools. And so making sure that allergy paperwork is on there is essential. But it's also about thinking, when do I contact the parent carer? And now is the answer to that question. We want to do it this term. Communication at the time of transition is really important. And the same things that I said right at the very beginning about staff being proactive in their conversations applies the same with transitions. It's really important that if we have a think about secondary schools, that secondary staff, the transition lead, actually is arranging a meeting with the parents and carers and the necessary people within the secondary school who will take that active lead in managing that young person's allergies, being proactive, getting that meeting set up now, learning about the child now means that any systems and processes that need to be reviewed can be reviewed before September. And there is still plenty of time to make those changes, to make those tweaks.
Thank you, Tracey. So
Just taking it back to the training and education at school of the staff members, I'm just wondering about education of the students and the person with the allergies peers. Is that something that you promote and advocate for to make sure that the children at school are also aware of the allergy, just to make things easier for that child that has the allergies?
Yes, it's really important, and it's something that all schools should do in a way that's suitable for the young people that they have. And it needs to be done on a regular, at least annual basis, so that the children and young people understand that those living with allergies have a tough time at times, and that there are things that their peers, whether or not they're friends, can do to support them. It really, that education around allergy and what it is really also helps with bullying, because bullying happens when people don't understand things very well. And by making sure that children and young people actually understand how serious it is and that it can be life-threatening, helps people to empathise far more.
And just on that topic of educating the children at school, we know that there is a video, Take the Kit, which we worked on quite a few years ago. And I've had a few members of staff who've inquired, asking if that is a suitable video to show children of a certain age, because it is quite a traumatic video. And I'm wondering, is that something you use in education for children of a certain age when trying to teach them about how serious allergies are?
Yes, it is. So we do use that within our own training and assemblies for secondary school students, right from the age of year 7 upwards. You can't just show the video without, in isolation. It has to be with some follow-up, because it is very hard-hitting. But that hard-hitting message and the follow-up actually really helps young people empathise and understand. So it's an essential part of the education, really.
Tracey, where do schools most often struggle with allergy management? If a school or an education provider is listening to this podcast today and is thinking, I've got a lot of work to do to get to this place, both with working with families or putting essential protocols in place, where would they start? And how does the Safer School programme come into this?
We are a one-stop shop for good allergy management for any organisation, especially schools. So our Safer Schools programme is just the umbrella term for all of the resources, information and training that a school needs in order to have good allergy management practices in school. From the policy that was written by ourselves, Allergy UK and BASCI, which is approved by the DFE, so you don't need to go looking anywhere else. It's downloadable. We have so many free resources in that Safer Schools programme that actually will help the lead be able to work through and ensure that everything that is happening at school is correct. The thing that schools struggle with the most is when they limit the knowledge about allergy to a small core of people. The trouble with that is that when that person is off or leaves to go to another job partway through the year, or you've got 2 people off, and for various different reasons, one's called away from class, all of a sudden you're left with nobody who has the knowledge and understanding they need to keep that young one safe. And so having a school-wide approach to it, with everybody knowing the signs and symptoms of allergy and anaphylaxis, we are going to keep our little ones safe, whether they be 7 or 17 and in 6th form.
I just wanted to touch on school nurses, because we sometimes have inquiries from school nurses, and I know that perhaps before that it was more common for schools to have nurses. And I'm just wondering, do you think a school with a nurse is better equipped, and should parents worry if there isn't a school nurse available on site?
Interesting. No, parents shouldn't worry if there isn't a nurse on site, because our Safer Schools programme is designed for the layperson. So for any member of school staff can use our Safer Schools programme to ensure that their practice is the best that it can be. School nurses often come to us for their training. So we are truly that one-stop shop. And when we talk about school nurses, we have independent schools who have school nurses. And then we have school nurses who are commissioned by the NHS Trust for the area. And that they do have different roles. The school nurse in an independent school or in a state secondary school will be looking at all of the children with medical conditions in school, but they still might not manage the policy and procedures. The school nurse who is working for the commissioned service from the local health trust will also have oversight of all of the medical conditions in the school, but it won't be as hands-on at all. And so having the school staff use our Safer Schools programme, that will equip the school with everything that they need to safeguard the students in their care.
How does our Safer Schools programme and the AllergyWise training address some of the issues around staff confidence if they were actually called upon to deal with a medical emergency or be the person responsible for putting the risk assessment in place? How does the training support staff with that and their confidence to be able to actually undertake the role?
Yeah, the feedback from our courses is outstanding. Every participant says how much their confidence has improved and how they feel able now to manage students with allergies, administer adrenaline auto-injectors, and they just feel really empowered having undertaken our courses, whether these be our e-learning courses or our face-to-face courses. They particularly like the ability to have a go with the adrenaline auto-injectors. And these are available free from the manufacturers. And actually in our e-learning course, we say that schools should get hold of these so that when they get to that point in the e-learning course, staff can have a go guided step by step along with the videos that we have included at that part of the course. And so it really does help school keep children with allergies safe.
Thanks, Tracey. So on the topic of spare adrenaline pens, what is the best way for schools to obtain these spare pens? And do you think this is a really crucial piece of equipment that schools should be obtaining if they can?
Yes, it is a piece of life-saving equipment. So schools have to purchase the adrenaline auto-injectors, and they're purchased through a particular aspect of the law that is there just for schools and maintained nurseries. The guidance is guidance on the use of adrenaline auto-injectors in schools, and it tells the school the process that they need to go through in order to be able to hold a spare adrenaline auto-injector. But fundamentally it is get the letter either from within the guidance or downloadable from our website, pop it onto your headed paper, head teacher to sign it, go along to the chemist or an online pharmacy, hand over your cash and walk away with some adrenaline auto-injectors. Making sure then when they're back in school that you have recorded their expiry date through the alert system that again is free from the manufacturers, and that all staff know where to find them and that you've really thought about the location where they are kept. They are essential. I know school budgets are tight, but this is a piece of life-saving equipment. PTAs do quite like to fundraise for things like this. And so actually, because it's an ongoing cost, but a very small amount of PTA fundraising, it's a really good thing for the PTA to say that they do. Okay. And schools can then apply for our AllergyWise School Award as holding those as one of the criteria.
So you can get those at any pharmacy, including the online ones. And I think I remember you saying, Tracey, that you can have a look at different options, as some might be better value than others.
You know, Ask the local pharmacy whether they can sell it to you at the NHS price. Ask the pharmacy whether they can sell it to you as part of your life-saving equipment at a reduced price. Haggle. Mm-hmm. It's worth asking. If you don't ask, you'll never know.
And they have to be replaced every 2 years, or just when they
expire. Yeah, so again, you're purchasing this, so make sure that they give you the longest expiry date that they have.
Tracey, as we bring the podcast to a close today, for any schools that are listening to this and think they've got quite a journey ahead of them and not quite sure where to start, what would you suggest?
So don't be put off, don't be daunted. Every little step is a step in the right direction. If you're a member of the support team listening to this, go share it with the lead in your school. If you are the head or the lead in the school and you're thinking, I don't know what to do, have a look in that free download section. Everything that you need is there, including a protocol for best practice. I like a checklist. You can work through and tick things off in there. Start by getting your policy, getting your training booked, and any questions, you can just use our AllergyWise email to get in touch, and we will get back to you as soon as we possibly can do. But thank you for making your school safe and inclusive for those children and young people living with allergies.
We hope you enjoyed tuning in to today's podcast on this very important topic. To make sure you don't miss any episodes, you can subscribe to our podcast on your favourite podcast app, including Spotify and Apple Music. Finally, be sure to follow us on social media at Anaphylaxis UK to join in the conversation, and let us know if there are any questions you would like us to answer next time.